Hello and welcome to this tutorial on variables. I'm going to talk a little bit about what variables are and how and why we might use them, and also give you a bit of a heads up on some of the gotchas surrounding variables. So I'm going to talk about them in the context of a timer, which we're going to stick on this explosive device. So I've created a script called timer, which is attached to this. Now let's go and have a look at the script. So if I'm going to create a timer, there's a few variables I'm going to need to use. So what is a variable? A variable is essentially a way of storing data in our script so that we can manipulate that data and refer back to it later and then do things with that data. So the data could be anything. So let's give you an example. So to start with, for this timer, I might need, the duration of the timer. So here I'm creating a variable called local. I'm saying local duration, and I'm giving it a duration in milliseconds. So 1000 milliseconds is a second. So here I have a variable declaration. The name of the variable, also referred to as the identifier of the variable, is this bit here. This is the name that I've given it, and I can give it whatever name I want to. It could be duration, it could be my variable, it could be potato, it doesn't matter, potato, it doesn't matter. I can give it the name of whatever I want to give it. But it's a good idea, and it's best practice really, to use something that is actually meaningful, so that when you are trying to fix any bugs in your script or you're sharing it with someone else, then it's really obvious what the script is doing. Don't make it harder for yourself by calling everything potato, potato 2, potato 3. Just use the variable names that make sense. So here, this variable is going to be called duration. And if I wanted to be even better, I might say duration ms, which tells me I'm measuring this duration number in milliseconds, or s for seconds, or I could just call it duration if I know that I can just read through the code and spend more time doing that. So I've got the variable name. What else is in this statement? Well, we've got this equals 1000 here. And so what this bit is doing is this is literally saying store the number 1000 in the variable which is called duration. So now wherever I refer back to this, so if I did that, for example, in the brackets, I've referred to this variable duration. And so wherever I refer to this variable, that's actually going to be swapped with the number that's stored in it. So if I wanted to, I could do a new variable called 2 times duration. And that might be duration plus duration. So now I have 2 times duration, and that's stored in a variable called 2 times duration. And these will both be swapped to be 1000. So this will literally go and say, all right, what's stored in the variable duration? Oh, it's the number 1000. Fantastic. I will totally use that, and I will put that there. And what's this variable? Oh, it's duration again. Oh, well, what's stored in that variable? Oh, it's 1000. Okay, I'll go and get that and store that in there too. That's essentially what a variable is. It's a way of storing data, and then we can refer back to it later. So we can refer back to it by outputting it to the console, or we could refer back to it in more complicated ways, like moving things around the level, or showing the amount of time you've got left on something. There's lots of different ways you can use variables, but essentially we need to store that data so that we can refer back to it. Now, the types of data we could store aren't limited to numbers. This is one type of data called a data type. But we can do other things. We can do words. So 1000. So we can use characters, alphanumeric characters. So this could also have numbers in it. And we can store whatever we like, as long as it's between quote marks. And now we are storing a type of data called a string. So a string just refers to a string of characters. Alphanumeric characters can include that and punctuation and all sorts of things. So anything on your keyboard, essentially, you can put between quote marks, and that will then be stored in the variable at the moment called duration. Let's just put this back. So we've got duration as 1000, my words equals Andy, which is my name, Andy's words. Let's just remove that so that it's like that. Okay, so now we have the words, Andy's words, stored in a variable called my words. And again, I can refer back to that later. Just by using that identifier, which is my words. So anywhere I now use my words will output the actual content of that, which is in the quote marks, which is Andy's words. So it won't output the quote marks necessarily. It will output what's inside the quote marks, because Lua's really smart and it knows that when I'm using quote marks, what I mean is the words that are inside it. It's just a type of data. So there's lots of different types of data. We can do vectors, which is a list of numbers. We could do things like colors and all sorts of stuff. So we can store things in our variables. And then we can refer back to them later. What we store, we use an equal sign to denote what we want to store. And then we can put things in there. And we use this terminology here to refer to the scope of the variable, which I'll go through in another video. But basically, duration and my words won't be accessible outside of the init function because I've used local here. So if you're interested in how we might make variables that can be referred to, then that will be in a separate video about scope. But hopefully this introduction to variables has been useful. And hopefully you can start to explore some of the variable concepts yourself. There's loads of documentation on both Lua and on the Crayta API about this kind of stuff, and the tutorials on there as well, which talk through how you might go about using variables. If you get stuck, head over to the Discord. There's loads of us on there, all willing to help you out with your coding problems. Or you can always at me on the Discord for Crayta, and I can see if I can jump in your game and give you a hand too. But yes, that's the end of this tutorial on variables.